All right, welcome back, everybody, to the sixth week of the Tech Bytes JavaScript session. Looks like we got a lot of people from our Python session joining us, so welcome back. And let's get right to it. We got a lot in plan for today. Quick introduction, you guys know who me and Andrew are. My name is Rayan Siddiqui, rising senior at James B. Carter High School. Love to code, see my passion. You can check my website out for more projects of mine at rayansiddiqui.com. I'm my partner, Andrew.
Thank you for the introduction, Rayan. My name is Andrew Choi. I'm going to be a freshman at Purdue University. In terms of my actual interests, I also code a lot like Rayan. I'm particularly interested in things like computer graphics, and I do illustrate as a hobby. If you want to check out some of the stuff I've done, particularly in middle school, you can check out my website, andrewchoi.info, for things that I have done.
Great. All right, so here is our agenda for today, guys. We are going to be relating more block code to typing code, actually, like we started with the foundation 2 weeks ago. And then we're going to start actually typing some code out and hopefully getting some of the basics down to build a stronger foundation and start making some cool projects. But first, we got to make some more relations and do some recap from the past couple weeks.
All right, so to recap what we've been talking about, we've sort of transitioned from talking about JavaScript to talk about JavaScript and other things that we use it for. So for instance, we use HTML and CSS in website development as well as JavaScript. And this will become very important when we use JavaScript to, say, manipulate pieces of the style and structure of our website.
And you guys will find out that all three of these files come together to make our project soon. But before we can do that, we got to first talk about some more of the terminology and the relation between block code and typing code. Now, the first one we're going to be going over right now is variables. Now, we've talked a whole lot about variables in our Python session and in our JavaScript session as well. Not going to go back into the whole in-depth what variables do, but as we know, they're used to hold values. And in JavaScript, this is the particular syntax of how we assign values to variables. We shorten the name variable to var, the name of our variable, and then whatever value we want the variable to hold, such as this looks like a string value, there could be like a number value, and there's no better way to actually put this into practice than actually typing it out, which we'll do in a little bit.
All right, so one thing that you might want to just keep in the back of mind when you're doing JavaScript is that types are assigned automatically. This means that if you're like, can you go back to the slide real quick?
Yep.
The previous slide. This means that if you were to assign a variable like this, var x equals tech autumn, that's automatically assigned as a string. You don't actually like specify it's a string when you initialize it. Can you like go? Okay, so beware of accidentally dividing tech autumn by 3.
Yeah. And I think it was Vishnu or the person who asked that are Java and JavaScript the same languages? Well, this sort of ties into that because say, for instance, this wasn't a JavaScript course. Say this was a Java course, then that's a whole other ballgame. Then we actually got to specify the type of what the variable represents. So we have to literally say string variable name, whatever their name is, equals quotation marks string value. Literally for an integer, we got to say int, the variable name equals whatever integer value. So JavaScript is nice in the sense that, like Andrew said deeply into the mic, that types are assigned automatically.
Automatically.
Yes, there we go.
I hope that doesn't like hurt the ears too much, does it?
So now let's move on towards if-else statements. We actually just made a quick game with that in Python.
All right, I'll stop doing that, Vishnu, then.
And we've talked about if-else statements in our exercises through our JavaScript block codes as well. But today we're going to start actually typing some if statements, and we can actually see if statements in variables in conjunction. We have our variables being declared with values up here, and then an if statement checking if the money which we have is greater than or equal to the price of a laptop. And then this statement, console.log, we talked about it 2 weeks ago. Basically, it's a way for us to print out our variables, see what's actually happening in a text in the bottom area of our console. And as you can see towards the left, this is the format in which if statements are written. We have if, the literal word if, the if space, a parenthesis, open parenthesis, and then the condition which we want to check for. Like right here, we have checking if the money we have is greater than or equal to the laptop price. End parenthesis, these bracket, super important. You need the bracket. You don't need the colon like you do in Python. Then you put whatever you want to do in action, and then else if, same format. And if you're a bit confused, it's totally fine. We'll actually do some of this in a real IDE in a little bit.
All right, so functions. We've talked about this before, but just as a quick recap, don't you need a semicolon? Well, with JavaScript, it's a little weird. Sometimes you can omit a semicolon just because.
Yeah. It's good practice, though, to have a semicolon, but you'll find it especially useful in Java. I mean, I think I would just say it's good practice to have a semicolon.
Yeah, so don't do what I'm doing right now. I apparently I just accidentally didn't put a semicolon, and JavaScript just didn't care that I put it there. So because the language is a little weird, it was made in like a week, but whatever. So with functions, we have repeated uses with how we segment our code.
One sec, Andrew. Looks like Rhythm is saying that somebody in the Google Classroom needs the link to join, I think. 1 second, guys. Let me check real quick that. I keep on getting declined from the host. Joe, are you still on the line? Yeah.
Technical difficulties will be with that. Yeah. You might want to ask a parent. So I'm just like reading the Zoom chat. All right. Okay. So functions. So we have talked about this in the previous days, and we've sort of compared it to a segment of code that you can use repeatedly or under different circumstances. So for instance, we have a sort of example in the right where we have a function called count money, takes in a amount of dollars, and it will tell you whether that money is a lot or just a little. So for instance, we have my money in dollars. That's just the pretend money like you'd have in the bank account. And then I am calling the function right there, count money. I'm calling my money. And I am getting the message. You'll see it in the bottom right corner. It is meh, not so much in the console. That is telling us that we are getting that message. Now, in a hypothetical scenario, let's say that you just won the jackpot. You win the lottery, and you get $1 million. Well, for you lucky few, they will get that money deposited into their bank account. And of course, when we call the count money function again, we will say that's a lot of money in the console log. Notice how we didn't have to write that piece of code twice. We could actually reuse it. We could reuse the count money function in a different scenario. This is one of the key uses of a function, to use a piece of code in different cases. And you'll see a more abstract form of that in the left, where we have function, name, you have some parameters, and you do some stuff with that parameters. And of course, in order to call that function, you write the function name and you put the parameters in parentheses, which is a core component of coding with functions. You have the parentheses next to the name.
And those $1 million will probably not be enough after Uncle Sam takes his pay cut.
Yep, taxes.
All right, so we've explained some new concepts today, guys, such as the if-else statements, declaring variables, and some functions. So what better way to actually get our hands going than typing some code on our new website? Here is the link. I will drop in the chat again. This can also be found on our Google Classroom in the Materials tab. Here is the link. And let's open that up. And everybody, please let me know when you are there, and then we'll get started. Okay, looks like we got mostly everybody there. So for a quick exercise today, before actually we get into exercises, if you've forgotten the 3 different file formats which Andrew and I were talking about, remember there's the HTML where we structure our website, the CSS where we can make our website look nice, make it look cool, add some colors, add a design. The JavaScript is where all the actual coding occurs. So for today, let's do a quick exercise of how about the bank exercise. And if we want to utilize a function in which we could do something like this. So how about we ask the user for a value, and then our bank account, and then we pass that value into a function as a parameter, and then check if we have that much money available to withdraw. That sound good? All right, so let's get started. So let's see. How about we get started by creating a button? So if everybody wants to, so here we go with our new syntaxes, everybody. We discussed a lot of the new JavaScript syntax, but there's some new syntax you'll have to learn for HTML in order to create a button, some structuring. So in order to make a button, you do the shift less than sign like that. You type the word button like that, and then you do the greater than sign and the button. And then we can just say, click me for the value. And there we go, we got a button. As you can see, we can click it.
And just for your information, JavaScript difficulty is way more than HTML difficulty. So this should be easier to pick up for our purposes.
Yep. Now, we can see now that we got a button, right? But the thing is, like, it's just a static button in the sense that nothing happens when I'm literally clicking on it, right? Well, that's because we don't have a function which does something on the click of our button.
Wait, hold on. There's like a question from Redima. She is asking when she clicks the link, it brings her to Internet Explorer.
Internet Explorer. Okay, Redima, if you want to go to Google Chrome and just type in JS Fiddle, it should be the first link available.
And if you have time later on, you can change your default browser. I believe you can do that on Windows 10. I have done that recently, actually, with my laptop. So you can always trust that. You can always do that in a bit.
Yep. Aruj, you're asking, where did this white space come from? Well, this is like representing our web page, or the place where all of our HTML and all of our elements go. And to get that white space, you can either do Command R or run. All right. Ridima, are you good? Great. All right. So now, as we're talking about, we gotta actually make something happen when we click our button, right? Or in that sense, we got to get a value from the user. Well, how can we do that? We have to, first of all, we got to make our function. So let's start on by typing function in order to tell our JavaScript language that, hey, we're creating a function. We'll call it check money. And now here is the part where we're talking about a parameter. this is where we can pass in a value. And yeah, so before we do that though, I just want to show that it's like a connected function. So how about we type on that out? And now once we have our function, we can actually type some code into here. So how about we, just to see that this function is actually working, we'll do an alert on our browser screen and say that this function is working. And you'll see how that alert looks like in a little bit. So now we gotta actually connect our function to our button. And how do we do that? Well, we head on over to our button. Before the greater than symbol n space, we'll do on click. This is telling our button that whenever the button is actually clicked upon, call this function. And now if I hit run and I hit the click me function, we're able to see that working, the word which we wrote, is alerted to us. So how about we actually do something cooler now? And how about we grab a value from the user? And instead of doing that money example, we should instead, what we do, how about we sort of is simpler, I'm thinking. And how about we get the user's name, and then we'll add it to our web page right here somewhere, like in a paragraph format. So how about we do something like this? So I'm going to rename this to get username. And then now we can actually start working with our variables. So Andrew, do you want to start by talking through getting the input as a prompt?
Yeah. Gotta warn you, I'm a little rusty with JavaScript, but I think I can improvise from here.
Yep.
So in order to actually get the name, you're going to have to actually declare a name variable. In addition to that, we are going to actually have to prompt the user. I believe it's the input function, right? Wait.
It's prompt. Remember, that's Python. Remember, yeah.
Prompt.
And then, yeah, you're right. Yep. So prompt, and then like.
Spending too much time with other languages. All right. So similar to Python, we have a sort of input function in the form of the prompt. It will do something similar to the alert in that it will give a pop-up and give a little text that we can have to input and use for our purposes. So let's actually do that right now.
Yep. So let's run it. Check it out.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to write down something actually in the prompt. Let's say something like, what's your name?
The rhythm of this will be ending soon. If you want to eat lunch, you are more than welcome to leave.
Doesn't actually exactly end at 2 p.m. Pranav. It usually ends like 15 minutes earlier than that. I'd say like 1:45 at the latest.
Yep.
All right, so let's actually alert the name given just for testing purposes. So let's run and click, and just like that, what's your name appears, and we should write down the name. Let's just say type in Rayon's name, and just like that, we have control over the name variable in the form of this alert.
Yep.
And of course, we can do other stuff with it. We can log it as well. We do it right now. Run. And click. Say Andrew this time. Andrew. And just like that, we should get a log that says Andrew in the console.log. So that should be that. Do you want to take over from here, Rayon?
Yep, thanks. Yeah, so all right, so that's a way showing a basic example of how we can connect a button to our function. Now, how about we do something a bit cooler? How about we ask the user for their age, and do we want to get into document, the DOM properties? Actually, we'll do that next week. How about, for now, we'll just perform some mathematical operations and get a number from a user. So how about we do this? We'll ask the user for a number initially. So we'll say, what is your first number? And we'll change the variable name to something which actually makes sense. So we'll say, call this variable first number. Now, once we've gotten that first number, we'll ask the user, do they want to, then how about we ask the user for their second number, which they're going to perform an operation on. So we can just copy and paste that second line, like such. Now here, essentially what is happening is that we're prompting the user for a first number and then a second number. And then what we can do is we can, how about we use some if-else logic here? And then we'll, for the last prompt, we'll say a variable called which operation. And then we'll ask the user, do you want to perform addition or subtraction? So I'll let everybody catch up with this real quick and see our three prompts. And if I run this, we can even see it's asking for my first number, asking for a second number, and then asking, do we want to perform addition or subtraction? I'll let everybody catch up. All right, so now we got our first three prompts asking the user for the numbers and then which operation they want to perform. Well, we've asked the user for the numbers and which operation they want to perform, but say the user puts in the word addition, then the addition operation should occur. Well, in order to make that happen, we got to utilize some logic, aka some if-else statements. So let's do our first if statement, guys. Let's do if space parentheses like that. We'll do which operation, the variable, and then we'll say if which operation is equal to the user inputting addition, like that. Then we'll do shift the bracket so we can get the brackets like that. And then here is where we will have to do some math. So what we can do is, we got to do integer.parse int, right?
Yeah, like parse int.
Yeah. So, okay, can we just do, okay, so if everybody can, firstly, before we do our if-else logic, add this command. This is to make sure that we are converting our input into an integer called parse int, then parenthesis, and add a parenthesis at the end for the first number and second number variable. Now we can go about doing some operations. So say the operation is addition, then all we have to do is say, we'll create a new variable called total.
Do we also need to specify the base?
I don't think so. Ridema, your code disappeared. Well, did you by any chance create an account? So guys, before we go any deeper, make sure you create an account with JS Fiddle so that you can hit save every time you do some code in order to avoid the situation of your code disappearing by any chance.
For now, I think we can probably like give a little grace here and just copy and paste the code into the chat.
Yep. So here is, I'm not sure how it's going to turn on the chat, but here is the code for the JavaScript part.
You can probably do the HTML as a quick warm-up. Or copy and paste it.
All right, so now we got to delegate our addition, like the addition occurring into a variable. So var total will be the sum of our first number plus our second number. And then we can, at the end, alert the total is something like this. Now, we've tested for our addition case, but now we got to do our else. What if it's a subtraction? Then since we only have two scenarios in this case, we'll just do an else statement. We can copy and paste this code right here. And
alternatively, we could also take the var total outside of the if statements.
Yep.
Wait, no, never mind. I was thinking something else.
We could
I said.
Yeah, but it's fine for this case, I guess, yeah. All right, and now all we have to do is change the addition sign to a subtraction sign. And with that, that should do it. So let's run our code. First number we'll do 10. Second number we'll do, let's say, 5. And how will we perform some addition? Now the computer should alert me the number 15. Let's see the moment of truth. Shazam. It tells us the number 15. And similarly, if I do this for subtraction, so say I do 20, 10, and do subtraction, we should be outputted and alerted with the number 10. Voila. And there we go.
All right.
And guys, this link to this code, I'm just going to confirm, will be available on our Google Classroom. We'll post it in a little bit. And so that you guys can see if, like if you had a case like Ridema, in case you lost your code, or any case, just so you can play around with it as well. So we talk about what we're going to do next week, Andrew?
Sure. So next week, we are going to replicate the quiz game we made in Python in JavaScript. So when you say quiz game, do you mean like the one where we did like the
Yeah, where they'll like get the input, and then we can talk about some IDs in classes too, with like the DOM and all that.
You're right. So not just like the quiz, we're also going to talk about something called the DOM, which is a sort of structure that's sort of like built into HTML. We'll talk about it later, but just think of it as a way for JavaScript to access HTML code. So aside from that, we will work on a quiz game in JavaScript, and have a good week.
Take care, guys, and we'll catch you guys next week. See you.